Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. Extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrative, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act. Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. Extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrative, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act. Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. Extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrative, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act. Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. Extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrative, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act. Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrated, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act.
Muy buenos días. Antes de comenzar,
Good morning. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you, those joining by Zoom, that we have a Spanish-English interpretation service available. In addition, we are streaming in Spanish and English through the FAO Americas YouTube channel.
service available. Also, we are broadcasting through the FAO Americas channel in YouTube, in Spanish and in English. Pido también a todos los participantes en Zoom que
Please
aseguren de mantener sus
keep your
micrófonos
cameras and
desactivados
microphones
y dejarlos
off
antes que otros participantes.
when other participants are speaking.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a la
Welcome
consulta con el
to
objetivo
the
de
consultation with the private sector within the framework of the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. My name is Dukler Sternart. I'm Partnership Officer for the FAO Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, and I will be hosting today's session.
Como oficina regional,
As a regional office, we have scheduled 3 consultations with non-government stakeholders prior to our regional conference.
una se hizo la
One
semana
with the
pasada
civil
con
society,
científico y académico.
another with the scientific and academic community, which took place last week.
Programada
Next week,
hacer una
we've
consulta
scheduled a
última
consultation, the
con
last consultation
sociedad civil.
with the civil
La
society.
idea, básicamente, es
The idea behind is to hear your comments, suggestions, and opinions
nuestra
on our agenda
permitir
and
una
to
participación más
enable
calificada y
more
precisa
informed and accurate
dentro de la
participation
propia conferencia.
in the FAO Regional
La
Conference.
jornada de hoy está dividida en
Today's
dos partes.
session is broken down into 2.
Se puede proyectar para quedar más
If you
claro.
can
La primera
share with us the agenda. First,
va hasta mediodía,
from now until
Santiago
noon,
de Chile.
Santiago
Se trata
time,
de un diálogo
is
entre
a
sociedad
discussion among
privada y los
representatives of the
directivos
private sector and FAO
internacional de la FAO.
technical leaders.
Y por la tarde, a partir de
Then in the
las
afternoon,
4:30, también
from
radio hasta las
2:30
16
p.m.
horas,
to 4 p.m.
se
Chile
realizará
time,
entonces un
there will be an
encuentro exclusivo entre
exclusive
integrantes
meeting
del sector
for
privado de la
members of
región.
the region's
Y en
private
ese
sector
espacio,
in order
básicamente sirve
to
para coordinar su participación
coordinate their
en la próxima de la
participation
FAO,
in the upcoming
donde
FAO
estarán presentes
conference,
altos funcionarios de gobierno
which will be
y
attended by
ministros
senior
de
officials and
la
ministers
región.
from all 33
Y
countries
ambas
in the region.
jornadas cuentan con
Both
interpretación
sessions will
español-inglés.
have English-Spanish
También
simultaneous
tienen
interpretation.
toda la libertad,
Now,
pueden compartir sus
feel
opiniones,
free
experiencias y
to
comentarios
share
a
your
través
opinions,
del medio
suggestions,
digital
comments, and
o
ideas
incluso en el
using the
propio
chat
YouTube.
pod or
Tenemos un
using
equipo que
in
está
YouTube. We'll
atento
have
a
a
eso
team
y van a
that will be paying
reaccionar
attention
o
to that and
responder
will
todas sus
react
inquietudes
or answer all your questions.
Nosotros sabemos que el
So
sector privado
we
tem muito
know
para
that the
dizer à
private
FAO
sector
e hoje
has a
nós
lot
estamos
to
para
say,
escutar,
to tell FAO, and we're
para,
here to
para iniciar a
listen
jornada de hoje.
to your requests.
Dejo con ustedes a
First of
Pablo
all, let
Rapsuk.
me give you
Él es secretario de
Pablo
Políticas de
Rapsuk. He's
Análisis
the secretary of the regional
Superior de
conference and
Programas
senior program
para la
officer
Cooperación Regional
for Latin
y él
America
nos dará
and
la
the
formal
Caribbean.
bienvenida en nombre de
Who's
nuestro
on behalf
director
of
general
our
y representante con la
ASDT
ambassador
and
en
regional representative of
FAO
FAO for Latin America
y
and the
en República
Caribbean,
Bolivariana,
Mr. Rene
que
Orellana,
lamentablemente
who
no ha podido estar con
unfortunately
nosotros
is not
ya que
joining us
está en
today
una
because
misión de urgencia
he's in
internacional.
an urgent mission
Así
in
que
Haiti.
dejo la palabra
So
entonces a Pablo
I give you Pablo
para ese saludo de bienvenida.
for
Pablo.
these for his opening remarks.
Muchas
Pablo,
gracias, buen día, Ducler. Solamente
thank you.
confirmando que se me escuche
Good
bien.
morning. Am I
Sí,
coming through okay? Yes, loud and clear.
Estimadas y estimados representantes del sector privado,
Representatives of the
agradezco
private sector,
el
ladies
honor
and
de
gentlemen,
dirigirme
I'm the
en
honor
nombre del señor René
to
Orellana,
speak on behalf of Mr.
secretario
Rene
general
Orellana, ASDT, a regional representative of FAO for Latin America and the
quien, debido a
Caribbean,
compromisos oficiales
who,
en
because
Haití,
of
no ha podido
official
participar
commitments
de
in
la sesión y
Haiti,
me ha
is
solicitado
unable to
participar
join
en
the
esta
session
conferencia.
today and has asked me to convey his
Bienvenidos a
remarks.
esta sesión de
Welcome
consultación
to
con el
this
sector privado.
consultation with the
Parte
private
del proceso
sector
de
as
preparatorio
part of the
para la
preparation
39
process
Conferencia
for the
Regional de
39th
FAO para
Regional
América
Conference of
Latina y
FAO for
Caribe,
Latin
LARC
America and the
39.
Caribbean, LARC
Es un gusto
39.
contar hoy con su
It's a pleasure
participación.
having you today.
Agradezco al Comité de
I would
Pilotaje
like to
Sectorial
thank
de
the
la FAO
steering
y
committee for
compañeros, así como
organizing
a todas las
this
personas que nos
forum,
acompañan
as
a
well as
través de
all
la
those
transmisión en línea
joining
de las redes sociales.
online.
La Conferencia Regional de la
The
FAO
regional
será el
conference
órgano
is the
coordinante de
main
la organización a
governance
nivel
agency
regional.
of at the
Como marco,
regional level.
las consultas con actores no
So
gubernamentales
consultations with the
requeridas por el
non-government
sector privado son
stakeholders, particularly the
necesarias,
private sector,
permiten
are
incorporar
critical
perspectivas
to
prácticas
add
de distintas
practical
oportunidades
outlooks to
concretas
identify
y
specific
recoger recomendaciones que
opportunities and to
orientarán
collect
las
recommendations that
prioridades
will
de
guide
trabajo de la FAO para el
priorities for
bienio
FAO for the
2026
biennium
-2027, con el
2026-2027
objetivo de mejorar la
in order to
efectividad
improve
y
the
impacto
effectiveness
de
and
nuestras
the
intervenciones.
impact of our
Desde
interventions.
la FAO reconocemos
From
la
FAO,
capacidad
we
y papel central
acknowledge
del sector
the
privado
key role of the
en los
private
sistemas
sector
agroalimentarios,
in
su
agri-food
excelencia en la
systems,
producción,
the
transformación,
importance for production,
distribución y
transformation,
acceso a los alimentos
distribution,
en
and
todas las
access to
demandas para
food.
garantizar
It's
el
critical to
derecho a una
guarantee
alimentación
a right
adecuada en
to
todas
an
las regiones.
adequate
Valoramos
food
en
access
particular
at
la
all
contribución
regions.
del sector
We value the
privado
contribution of the
por
private
su capacidad de
sector,
innovación
their
y
ability
escalar
to
soluciones
innovate and to scale
basadas en
solutions
conocimientos
based
científicos
on
aplicados,
scientific knowledge,
experiencia técnica en
technical
agricultura,
experience in
alimentación y
agriculture,
cadenas de valor,
food,
que
and value
complementan la
chains
visión
that will
pública
supplement
y multilateral.
public and
El manejo y
multilateral
uso
action.
estratégico de
The
datos
strategic
es
use of
fundamental para la toma
data
de
which are
decisiones
critical for
basada en
decision
evidencia,
making
el
based on
seguimiento de los
evidence
ODS
and the follow-up
y
of
el conocimiento operativo
SDG
de los
and the
territorios,
operational knowledge
especialmente en
of
zonas donde
territories,
otros actores
specifically in
tienen mayor
areas where
presencia,
other stakeholders
que
have
facilita la
less
implementación efectiva en
presence,
el terreno.
which facilitates
La
effective
FAO
implementation on site.
busca
FAO
fortalecer la
aims at
colaboración con el
strengthening
sector privado,
collaboration with the
escuchando
private
sus
sector,
prioridades y trabajando
listening
de
to their
manera
priorities,
conjunta
and working
para avanzar
together
hacia las
in order
cuatro
to move
mejoras
forward to
establecidas
four
en este
betters,
marco estratégico.
as said in our
Mejor
strategic
producción,
framework: better
mejor
production,
nutrición, un
better
mejor ambiente
nutrition,
y una
better
mejor vida.
environment, and better
Este
life.
compromiso no es nuevo.
These commitment
En los
is not
últimos años, la
new. In
FAO
the
ha
last few
consolidado
years,
su
FAO has
relación con el sector
consolidated its
privado
relationship with the
mediante
private
acuerdos
sector
formales
through
e
formal agreements
implementaciones
and the
estratégicas de
implementation of the
colaboración con el
strategy
sector
for
privado.
collaborating with the private sector.
Aprovecho para informarles que
I may take the opportunity
recientemente
that this
recibimos vistas
strategy has
expertas
been recently
y aprobada
updated
por nuestros
and
Estados miembros.
approved by our
Su
member
publicación
states.
se
Its
realizará
publication and
próximamente y
dissemination will
refuerza
be
el rol
done
del sector privado como
shortly,
un socio
emphasizing the role of private sector
estratégico en
as a
la
strategic partner
transformación
in the
de los sistemas
transformation
agroalimentarios.
of agri-food
En términos
systems.
concretos, durante los últimos
Specifically,
3 años
during
de
the last
operación, la
three
FAO ha
years in the
establecido
region, FAO has
11
set
acuerdos formales de
14 formal
confidencialidad
agreements with their
y
private
otros 14
organizations,
acuerdos adicionales en
11
proceso de
additional agreements
formalización
in the process of
y hay más de
formalization,
100
and over
colaboraciones
100
no formales
active
en esta
non-formal
ámbito. Estos
collaborations
acuerdos reflejan una cooperación y una
today, which
expansión
means
en un
expanding
creciente interés
cooperation and a
mutuo en
growing
trabajar
mutual
conjuntamente.
interest in working together.
Estas alianzas involucran
These
una amplia
alliances
diversidad de
involve a
actores,
wide diversity of
desde pequeñas
stakeholders,
empresas,
micro,
instituciones,
small
cooperativas, grandes
businesses,
empresas nacionales
cooperatives,
y
large
multinacionales,
national and
instituciones de
multinational
cooperación,
organizations,
institutos,
financial organizations,
fundaciones
investment funds, foundations, chamber, trade, commerce, and agricultural chambers. We have to consider the peculiarities of each subsector in order to build efficient alliances consistent with FAO. Initiatives such as Hand in Hand shows the potential of public-private cooperation very well devised. Through this initiative, FAO has supported the design of investment programs in multiple countries, mobilizing public and private resources, strengthening value chains, and promoting inclusive and sustainable territorial growth. Thus, this session has been designed with you in order to look for a wide and balanced representation of the private sector. We'd like to listen to cooperatives, SMEs, exporters, financial organizations, and all those stakeholders contributing on a daily basis to the operation of agri-food systems. All of the outlooks are relevant and important. Please listen to the presentations from the technical experts and then contribute your comments and recommendations and inputs. This is a practical, constructive dialogue to strengthen cooperation and to make sure that from FAO we can continue to drive reliable and effective cooperation for the transformation of agri-food systems throughout the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo, for conveying René's words to us. And now we'll move on to more welcoming remarks. I don't know if you are aware of this, but in order to organize this consultation with the private sector, we have received the important commitment of the spokespersons of the previous conference. We created a steering committee, and we have been working them for months now in meetings and holding several exchanges with the FAO in order to design today's agenda. And so for her welcoming words, I would like to offer the floor to one of the members of the steering committee of the private sector, Brania Seguera. Welcome and thank you very much on behalf of all committee members. Thank you, Duca. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to greet you all and welcome you all to this dialogue between the FAO and the private sector within the framework of the process towards the regional conference of Latin America and the Caribbean, LARC 39, and speaking as a member of the steering committee of the past private sector committee. Talking about livestock, agri-food systems, forestry, aquaculture, processing, distribution, and trading of both food and beverage, comprised of small and medium-sized enterprises, producers, cooperatives, and other expressions of the economy in the region, committed with sustainable development and with supporting the regional priorities promoted by the FAO. We would like to thank the FAO for creating this space for reflections that brings us together online today, but with a clear purpose. It summons us during a decisive moment for Latin America and the Caribbean. We're a region with a tremendous productive capability, which is fundamental for global food security, but which at the same time faces profound challenges in food, nutrition, environmental sustainability, and rural development. Transforming our agri-food systems is no longer an option. It is a shared responsibility. And the Sustainable Development Goals shape the road ahead and remind us that development is only possible if it's inclusive, sustainable, and focused on people. Along that road, the FAO approach of the four improvements: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life, provides us with an integrating vision and profoundly human vision to advance towards more sustainable agri-food systems, and more resilient and also more inclusive. As from the private sector, we want to reaffirm that we form an active part of this transformation. Our voice is fundamental in order to provide concrete, innovating and scalable solutions based on the direct experience in territories and in value chains. We invest, innovate, we generate employment and knowledge, and we do this with the conviction that that sustainability and competitiveness must develop hand in hand. This virtual dialogue is a very valuable opportunity to listen, to connect, and to jointly build aligning priorities vis-a-vis the urgent challenge of access to nutritious food, adaptation to climate change, the sustainability of production, and the strengthening of communities. We bring to the fore that responsibility and commitment is shared, and we reiterate our commitment to continue to work hand in hand with the FAO, with governments, and with all stakeholders involved, convinced that only through dialogue and collaboration will we be able to make a true and lasting impact. Hopefully, this will motivate us to pass into action, and I look forward to a productive exchange. Thank you. Uh, uh, Very good introductory words, and after lunch, our colleagues, the members of the committee, will will play a much stronger role this afternoon. And now we move on to a presentation by FAO colleagues where they will present the FAO agenda for the next 2-year period, context and results as from the previous conference. But in order to begin, I go back to Pablo Rabsuk as Secretary of the Regional Conference, who will explain the participation of the private sector in the conference itself. Pablo, once again, may you be very welcome. And now you have 5 minutes. Thank you, Duke. I would just like to check that everyone can see the screen, which is in presentation mode. Thank you very much, Duclair, for this space. And I would like to again reiterate my greeting to representatives of the private sector. As from the FAO, we're very pleased to have you here. We value your contributions, your recommendations, so that we can work jointly and build a joint work looking ahead at the next FAO conference. That perspective, that contribution by the private sector is crucial for the transformation of our agri-food systems. And so I reiterate our gratitude for your commitment, for your support, and for your presence. I have 3 very short slides to present to you to provide a context of the next regional conference. We'll begin with the objectives of the conference. First of all, to review progress in the implementation of the recommendations of the LARC 38 of the previous conference. 2 years ago, we met in Georgetown, Guyana, where ministers of agriculture of the region provided work guidelines and a mandate in order to implement our work in the region in this 2-year period. And therefore, this is a possibility to review the progress that has been made with those recommendations. It's also important to discuss the current state of agri-food systems in the region and the prospects for FAO's work program. Today, we're beginning a new 2-year period, 2026-2027, and therefore this conference will enable us to receive a renewed mandate from ministers of agriculture, from governments of the region, in terms of where to focus, what will be prioritized by our region in the next 2 years. Another objective is to facilitate a dialogue with member states in the region to collect their contributions to the prospects of the FAO work program for the 2026-2027 biennium, as previously mentioned. Here, ministers and authorities of agriculture and of relevant sectors will come together, share experiences, best practices, and where we will also be able to enter into different types of alliances. And finally, another objective is obviously to report on the actual preparation of the 39th session of the regional conference. Next slide, please. The conference is broken up into 2 parts. One will be held on the 2nd and 3rd of March, focusing on the meeting of top officials. This is a technical type of meeting where the FAO presents the progress and the results that have been achieved in the region during the previous 2-year period and the proposed priorities for work during the next or during the new 2-year period. On the 2nd and 3rd of March, then we will be holding a negotiation between countries, normally at the level of directors of different units involving some vice ministers, heads of negotiating teams, where we discuss, agree, and debate the documents that will be subsequently approved by the ministers. That leads us to the ministerial sessions that will be held during the 4th, 5th, and 6th of March, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week. And this is what we call the ministerial session. The ministerial session is a strategic and political dialogue at the highest possible level on issues related to the mandate of our organization. And that emerges from the regional situations and priorities, and also at a global level, what is happening at a global level. Commodity prices, the prices of minerals and of fossil fuels, all that impacts our region. We are also analyzing an interesting situation at a regional level with different government changes, with renewal in executives and in parliaments, which that involve opportunities and challenges so that we can work together around agri-food systems and safeguarding food and nutritional security. Next slide. Here, I'll try to very quickly talk about this so that you can view the different issues that will be discussed in the various sessions, both during the top officers session and during the ministerial sessions. We will begin with reporting the results that the FAO has achieved during 2024-2025. After that, we will present the FAO priorities in the region in accordance with our present strategic framework that has been reviewed and that goes as far as 2031. In this case, it is governments via the representatives and top officials that debate and that may introduce adjustments to the document and make recommendations of new priorities, because the document at the end of the day is not an FAO document as such, but a document that emerges from the countries, from the regions, from member states. Now we move on to the second day. We also deliver a presentation on how to address food price inflation for food security, for food and nutrition, food security and nutrition in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have developed a whole series of documents, discussion, and analytical papers that are a basic contributions to each one of these sessions. After that, we'll hold a session about One Health, challenges and pathways in order to face up to health threats to animals, plants, and humans. After that, we'll hold a session on sustainable water and soil management in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is a fundamental and crucial issue for our region. And we can end that day with a presentation on strengthening resilience of agri-food systems in Latin America and the Caribbean, dealing with emergency issues in the emergency issues that our region has had to cope with. And we go on, then move on to the first day of the ministerial meeting, and we move on to a session devoted to driving agri-food system transformation, key triggers and strategies for transforming agri-food systems in Latin America and the Caribbean. On day 2, we highlight effective policies and programs in the region to eradicate hunger and poverty and reduce inequality. and also a session focused on closing productivity gaps in Latin America and the Caribbean, pathways for efficient, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient agricultural growth through science and innovation. And on the third day, a session focusing on our global initiative, which is called Hand to Hand, in order to increase financing for inclusive and resilient agri-food systems in the region, as mentioned via the Hand in Hand initiative. This is what, let's see, can we go back? Yes. And what we are sharing today is, in broad terms, what the layout or the main milestones in the conference agenda. And together with this conference, we will also have exhibitions of different initiatives and strategic initiatives that the FAO has in the region in partnership with the Brazilian um, aid agency. When it comes to South-South cooperation in the region, we'll also have space devoted to mechanisms or global type of initiatives that also have a direct impact together to our or on our work in the region, supplemented, of course, by short presentations or introductory presentations to specific issues that are tremendously relevant and of great interest to the public that will accompany us. This is as far as I wanted to go, dear Duca, and I am attentive to any comments or queries that you may have, and reiterate on behalf of the Secretariat of the conference our gratitude for your presence here and how important it is to listen to your voice, to your opinions, and to your guidelines and recommendations from the private sector for FAO's work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. Quite clear, but still, if questions, please, you can use the chat pod. Now, we will listen to Maya Takagi. She is the FAO program leader for Latin America and the Caribbean, and she will offer a brief introduction to the FAO program framework in Latin America and how it relates to the regional conference. Maya, you have around 8 minutes. I'll let you know. Good morning, and thank you, Dulca. Hope you, my presentation is quite brief so that we can better use the time. I will be breaking down my presentation. I will be sharing the presentation with the technical colleagues. Okay, next slide. I will be showing you what is that we'll be submitting to the conference. These three elements, in a very summarized way, there are several sessions, but let me focus basically on share the results of the FAO program of work for 2024-2025, which has to do with the recommendations of the previous conference. Like we said, context of agri-food systems in the region, and what are the regional priorities proposal for 2026-2027. Next, for the results, our data are based on the regional priorities, which are four, to do with our strategic framework, which in turn is related to promoting transformation of agri-food systems through better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life. For each one of these better, there is a regional priority. For better production, we need an efficient, inclusive, and sustainable production. For better nutrition, we have to put an end to hunger and achieve food security and nutrition. We need sustainable management of natural resources and adaptation to climate change. That's for better environment and reduction of inequalities, poverty, and promotion of resilience in the case of a better life. For the results, so closely related to the program priorities. Let me emphasize, for instance, innovation for sustainable agricultural production. That's for implementing agroforestry, agroecology, and conservation agriculture to strengthen environmental sustainable, improve the capabilities in we work in promoting a series of activities related to the strengthening and the addressing uh, problems with communities, private sector, to promote investment, innovation, because without innovation we cannot use all the potential. Also, building knowledge, try to address early responses through alliances. We have alliances with multiple stakeholders. And the other topic has to do with sustainable production is to improve the capabilities in sustainable soil management, responsible management of agricultural inputs, and climate smart agriculture in order to improve knowledge. And next slide, you can see this is for better nutrition to renew the commitment for the eradication of hunger and malnutrition by updating the STILAC Food Security and Nutrition Plan 2030. And we need uh, s- uh, to harnessing the potential of schools to achieve the right to food. We have multiple governments addressing this school feeding. FAO is offering technical support in terms of governance, design, uh, allocation of resources, working with partners from Brazil, for instance. Then for environment, some of the examples are strengthening, integrating agri-food systems into climate action and implementing strengthening national capability to implement national determined contributions and improving access to climate finance. 158.5 million from the environmental and climate funds through FAO projects and restoration, protection and restoration of ecosystems, restoring ecosystem services, um, safeguarding and restoring critical ecosystem functions and services essential for food and agriculture. For better life, we have investment programs relative to hand in hand program, which is promoting investments accounting for 1.7 billion US between 2022 and 2024. The action plans related to family farming a decade, characterization and mapping of innovation and policies related to family farming, and of course the integrated response in Haiti, our ADT, a regional representative is in Haiti for an integrated response, which is the only country in Latin America at level 4, a critical level. We have 73 recommendations in the conference, which are very well monitored. So we will be reporting on them. The context of agri-food systems in Latin America and the Caribbean. I want to emphasize the economic importance of agri-food systems in the region, with over 100 million, employing 101 million people. That's 22.6% of the total employment. And the economic importance. If we could only consider agriculture, the share of agriculture in the GDP is between 0.5 to 20%. If we consider all the agri-food systems, processing, transportation, consumption, trade, we go to 30%. One third on average of the economy in the region comes from agri-food systems. What we see is that there are still long-term challenges, uh, long-lasting structural constraints that threaten their efficiency, inclusiveness, resilience, and sustainability. These are the current challenges. We have 4 years of consecutive progress in reducing the hunger and food insecurity. There are still sub-regional inequalities. We are eradicating hunger, but we have certain countries are lagging behind. Price inflation of food and the high cost of healthy diet and climate change is still affecting 65% of losses are related to disasters, which are affecting agriculture. And poor people are the most affected in terms now. Next, please, mid and long term, we have low growth as a challenge, sustain low growth, limited growth. We need to increase productivity, the agricultural productivity and labor. We still have a great potential, but a low investment in R&D, quite low compared to other regions. The investment in R&D, it is extremely low, and the persistence of poverty and severe gaps among women. Okay, now we will listen to our colleagues that will be sharing the different priorities. So Javier Villanueva, he is a senior officer for fishery and agriculture and coordinator of efficient, inclusive, and sustainable production. Javier, you have 5 minutes, and I will let you know. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Duclair. Thank you, Maya, for the introduction of our work every day. As I'm Javier Villanueva, I'm a senior officer of fishery and aquaculture in the region. I will coordinate Priority 1, which is efficient, inclusive, and sustainable production. We are focusing on guaranteeing sustainable production models through efficient and inclusive value and value chains, guaranteeing the innovation of sustainable agricultural production through public policies, building on capabilities, and implementing innovative approaches to provide technical assistance to go through a more sustainable production. All this through 5 priority areas so that you can that I will explain. Next slide, please. This is our first focal point, innovation innovation for sustainable agriculture production. Besides agriculture, includes livestock and forestry systems. And what we do is to drive policies and the adoption of practices, innovations, and technologies in the integrated production systems. We also promote integrated livestock innovation and technology through biosecurity, health management, digitalization, and local knowledge. As well, the validation and expansion of innovation for a small scale agriculture, inclusive value chains, and policies consistent with international rules enabling sustainability. Well, then we have blue transformation, where we have strategies to expand aquatic food systems to contribute um, in promoting inclusive growth, especially for those communities depending on fishery and aquaculture, through three main lines, which is the sustainable expansion of aquaculture, efficient zoning and management of fishery, and strengthening of value chains in aquatic food systems. And then number three, on One Health, in order to have nutritious food complying with the standards of nutrition. But we strengthen prevention and management of transboundary pests and diseases and emerging sanitary risks, so health risks affecting agri-food systems. Under the approach of One Health, the promotion of coordinated strategies, integrated strategies for early warning, biosafety and security to protect animal health, and of course, food safety, and as well as trade. We strengthen capabilities to address pandemics and emerging health risks, and integrated management of antimicrobial resistance in agri-food systems. In the small scale producers equitable access to resources, where we promote sustainable practices, innovations, and technologies in integrated production systems. So as to promote, especially we pay attention to Afro-descendants, indigenous peoples, women, rural youth, and vulnerable populations. We also have equitable access to productive services, funding, social protection, micro loans, and we strengthen national capabilities for the generation of data supporting decisions, and digital agriculture focused on closing the digital divide through the strengthening of local innovation ecosystems and the support of local leaders, promotes inclusive adoption of digital networks and the incubation of inclusive rural digital micro enterprises to generate jobs and to strengthen the livelihood and promote digital innovation. Thank you very much.
Now, I'd like to offer the floor to Leopoldo del Barrio. He's a food safety and food quality officer, and he'll be talking about regional priority number 2, the end of hunger, and the achievement of food and nutritional security in all its shapes. Please go ahead, Leopoldo. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everyone, to all those that accompany us in this important event in preparation of the next regional conference. I'm Leopoldo del Barrio, Food Safety and Quality of the Regional Office of the FAO, and we'll be talking about regional priority number 2, which seeks to end hunger and achieve food and nutritional security in the region. And we hope to achieve this objective via the interpretation of information in order to produce solid evidence for decision-making via technical assistance for the evaluation of policies and regulatory frameworks, and also with the promotion of intersectorial dialogue, the exchange of knowledge and experience, together with the generation, with capacity building and collective action in order to achieve food security and a better nutrition. And the proposal suggests 5 priority spheres that we can see on the screen: healthy diets for all, nutrition for the most vulnerable, safe food for everyone, losses and waste of food, and transparent markets and trade. Next one. Now, I would like to very quickly describe each one of these priority spheres. And in terms of healthy diets for all, we seek to reinforce institutions and governance frameworks to advance the realization of an essential right, and which is also the basis for other rights, which is a right to adequate food, to generate and analyze evidence on access to and consumption of safe and nutritious food, including, of course, cost and accessibility to healthy diets that, as mentioned by our program leader, is a relevant aspect for the region, and also to incorporate other progress indicators such as the diversity of diets incorporated in SDG 2, and also to support the design and implementation of policies, legal frameworks, and actions that foster healthy food environments, and thus also promote access to healthy diets. So we also seek to strengthen national capacities to develop and implement policies such as food, school food, and food education, among other measures, and also to promote institutional coordination to engage diverse stakeholders, including congressmen, academia, and society, consumers, and of course the private sector, in order to foster that convergence and catalyze action. The second programmatic sphere includes nutrition for the most vulnerable, which are the most severely impacted. And first of all, we suggest strengthening data collection and analysis on food security and nutrition, targeting the most vulnerable groups to generate evidence and promote dialogue on nutrition-sensitive social protection, which includes expanding school feeding programs with improved nutritional and standards, and of course include public procurement and family farming. Together with that, provide technical assistance and policy support for food and cash transfer programs and subsidized food schemes, among others. And within the sphere, also to promote cooperation and policy dialogue to address all forms of malnutrition. In the third sphere, that refers to safe food, and we seek to strengthen the risk analysis capacities to support evidence-based food safety policies, so that the construction of policies and regulatory measures should be based on evidence, on science, and on risks, and also to enhance measures to prevent antimicrobial resistance transmitted by food, focusing on one single health, and also to increase members' participation in Codex Alimentarius standard setting processes, and along those lines to support the application of sanitary measures and phytosanitary measures under WTO agreements. The next one, I'll refer to the last two programmatic spheres, reducing food loss and waste. Strengthen data collection capabilities and likewise measurement and reporting capacities, because this is an important challenge for the region. We promote innovation and technological solutions throughout the entire agri-food systems, and to support the development and implementation of context-specific policies, strategies, and legal frameworks aligned with the voluntary code of on FLW, and also to foster global and regional partnerships to accelerate actions. And in terms of promotion and facilitation of agri-food trade, of course, to promote intra-regional agri-food trade, to provide technical assistance and capacity development to facilitate that agri-food trade, addressing tariff and non-tariff and technical barriers, and thirdly, to facilitate access to market information systems and market intelligence and tools. And finally, to strengthen collaboration with regional economic integration bodies and also sub-regional and also agri-food trade organizations. So that in terms of regional priority number 2. And now I'll offer the floor to my next colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you, Leopoldo. I would like to let you know that you can post queries in the chat And also raise your hands if you want to raise your hands for the Q&A session. You can already begin to do that. And now I'll offer the floor to Catalina Moyano, who is an expert in planning and monitoring for a better environment and a better life. Catalina, you have 5 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to share with you this space, as mentioned by Duca. My name is Catalina Moyano, and I am a representative, the coordinator of regional priority number 3. This priority is entitled Sustainable Management of Natural Resources and Adaptation to Climate Change. As with other priorities, this regional priority also has programmatic spheres, in this case 4. Next slide. The first sphere is climate change mitigating and adapted agri-food systems. The proposal of this sphere is linked to expanding climate change mitigation and adaptation in all agri-food systems. Now, how? Well, by strengthening technical capacities for climate adaptation and mitigation in agri-food systems to enhance rural resilience to climate-related shocks and extreme events via innovating climate investment projects for adaptation and mitigation of agri-food systems with a special focus on rural populations living in vulnerable conditions. The second sphere is related to bioeconomics for sustainable food and agriculture. Now, here we seek strategic partnerships to create knowledge and also data and information in order to support solid decision-making when it comes to bioeconomics, in addition to providing technical assistance on value chains and production models. In this area, we work together with regional priority number 4, A Better Life. Next one, please. In the third sphere is aimed at the biodiversity and ecosystem services for food and agriculture. Here we seek to strengthen integrated landscape management supported by the mobilization of environmental financing, in addition to enhance regional capacities for landscape restoration and biodiversity conservation within production systems. Lastly, to provide regional collaboration platforms and governance mechanisms in order to support the sustainable management of forests, conservation areas, and biodiversity for food and agriculture. On the other hand, also to promote the approach of integrated fire management in agriculture and forestry landscapes as alternatives to the issue of wildfires. And the fourth sphere, which is achieving sustainable urban food systems, where we suggest supporting integrated regional action for public food supply and the trading of food to support members in modernizing traditional food markets to ensure access to healthy diets, enhance city-to-city cooperation platforms for urban agri-food systems in order to foster inclusive food policies, the exchange of knowledge, and multi-stakeholder governance. Thus, in summary, the areas or spheres of this regional platform are food systems that mitigate climate change, bioeconomics, biodiversity and ecosystemic services, and sustainable urban agri-food systems. I would like to mention that priority number 3 falls within the context of agri-food systems that are increasingly exposed to climatic variability and to extreme phenomena that are more frequent and intensive, resulting from an increasing number of countries that are impacted by this climate change that has led to a drop in agricultural productivity and the reduction of income, among other problems. And thus, the FAO will continue to support its members to deal with climate change, integrating adaptation and mitigation in agri-food systems, thus safeguarding food security and livelihoods, promoting sustainable practices to reduce emissions, restore ecosystems, and improve the efficiency of resources, paying special attention to populations living in vulnerable conditions. And that is it, Duca. Thank you very much, Catalina.
Thank you, Catalina. The last
So that's
presentation,
María
5
Ignacia
more
Haddad.
minutes with
Ella es
Maria Ignacia
experta en
Haddad. She's an
economía y
expert in economic
política
analysis and public
y nos va a
policies,
presentar la
and she will be
prioridad
presenting
4. Adelante. Hace
uh,
5 minutos cuando
priority
pase uno le
4.
voy a avisar.
5 minutes.
Perfecto, Duca, muchas gracias.
Thank
Bueno, muy
you,
buenos días
Duca.
a
Thank
todos
you.
y
Good
todas.
morning,
Participar
everyone.
de
It's a pleasure
esta
to be
importante
part
instancia
of
de
this
diálogo de
important
alcance y próxima
dialogue
conferencia
towards the
regional.
next regional
Como
conference.
bien decía Duca, hoy les
Like Duca
comparto mi
said,
presentación de la prioridad
today I'm
regional 4,
representing
reducir
priority
desigualdades,
4,
pobreza y
reducing
promover la
inequalities and
resiliencia.
poverty and promoting
Esta
resilience.
prioridad responde a
This
uno de los
priority
desafíos más
is one of
persistentes en
the
América
most
Latina y el
persistent
Caribe,
challenges in Latin
y que la
America and the
pobreza y la
Caribbean, which is
desigualdad en
poverty
región
and
siguen teniendo
inequality in
un
the
rostro
region,
marcadamente rural.
is mainly
Hoy en
rural.
día, el 67%
Today,
de la pobreza
67% of
multidimensional se concentra en las
multidimensional
áreas
poverty is
rurales,
in the rural
que tienen una
areas.
incidencia hasta 6
And they
veces
have
mayor que las zonas
incidence
urbanas.
which is 6 times
A esto se
higher than
suma
urban
una estructura
areas,
productiva frágil, donde el
with a
80% de
weak
la población sigue
productive
desempeñando sectores de baja
infrastructure, with
productividad,
80%
salarios
is
muy
still
bajos
low
y alto
productivity
nivel
with
de
very low
informalidad.
salaries and high levels of informality.
Desafíos que afectan
Challenges
desproporcionadamente a
that affect
mujeres, a los jóvenes
disproportionately to
rurales, a la
women
comunidad
and
indígena y a las personas
youth and
afrodescendientes.
indigenous peoples, as well
Al
as
mismo tiempo, los
Afro-descendants.
territorios rurales
Likewise,
están cada vez más
rural
expuestos a
territories are
eventos
more and more
climáticos extremos,
exposed to
así
extreme
como también al
climate
choque
events,
económico y
as well as
social,
economic and
mientras
social
enfrentan
shocks,
una
while they
brecha estructural de
face a
financiamiento.
structural
Es
gap
en
for
este contexto que
financing.
se inscribe la prioridad regional
And,
4, que se
and this
implementa
is
a
the
través
priority
de
number
6
four,
esferas
implemented
programáticas
through
prioritarias en el
six
área de gobernabilidad, como
priority
les
areas,
corresponde presentando
which
a
I
continuación.
will be presenting
Si puede
as of
pasar la
now.
diapositiva, por favor.
Next slide,
Gracias.
please.
Un primer eje central en esta
The
prioridad
first
es la
point
igualdad de
here
género y
is
la mejora
gender
de las mujeres
equality and
rurales.
rural women's
Reducir la pobreza
empowerment.
rural no afecta
Reducing
solo sin cerrar las brechas
rural
que enfrentan las
poverty
mujeres en el
requires the
acceso a
closing
ingresos,
of
a
gaps
activos
in terms
productivos y
of
a servicios, así como sirve
services,
promover y
inputs,
fortalecer la economía del
salaries,
cuidado, que
as well
sostiene
as
la vida
strengthening
rural
the
y que
economy of
permanece
care,
invisibilizada.
which
En este
is
marco,
not
la prioridad
visible.
regional 4 busca promover el
Priority number four
empoderamiento
aims
de
at
las mujeres
promoting an
rurales y fortalecer
rural
justamente la
women's
economía del
economic
cuidado
empowerment and
como una
care
condición
economy
fundamental
as a fundamental, as a
para avanzar hacia
prerequisite
territorios
to
rurales más
move
inclusivos y
towards more
equitativos.
inclusive and
La
equitable
segunda
rural
esfera
territories.
programática,
Number two
enfocada en la transformación de la
is
agricultura,
inclusive rural transformation.
constituye una parte nuclear de la prioridad
It's the
regional
core
4.
of our priority
Su
number four,
objetivo es avanzar en la
aiming at
inclusión social,
moving forward in
económica y
social
productiva de la agricultura
inclusion,
familiar,
as
los
well
pueblos
as economic
indígenas,
and
las personas
productive of
afrodescendientes y la
families,
juventud rural.
indigenous
En
people, the
este sentido, la
youth,
propuesta
Afro-descendants.
programática para el
The
próximo bienio
proposal
se
for the next biennium
operacionaliza a través de tres líneas
is
de trabajo
through
clave.
three main
La primera de ellas es
works.
fomentar
So
la
lines
adopción y
is
el uso de herramientas, tecnologías e instrumentos de política que
the
promuevan la inclusión
policy
social,
frameworks,
económica y
programs,
productiva de los
platforms,
pueblos
and tools to
indígenas y las
strengthen
personas
family
afrodescendientes.
farming.
La segunda de ellas busca
The
apoyar a los
second of
países miembros en
there
el
is
diseño e
supporting member
implementación de
countries
marcos de
in the design
política,
implementation of
programas, plataformas
policy
y herramientas
frameworks,
para
programs,
fortalecer a la agricultura
platforms to
familiar.
strengthen family
Y
farming,
finalmente, fortalecer la
and
coherencia y
to
la sinergia
strengthen
entre el
the
Sistema Nacional
coherence
de
and
Protección
synergies
Social y
amongst
las iniciativas
national
de
social
desarrollo rural.
protection systems and rural
Este
development
enfoque busca
initiatives,
avanzar desde políticas
aiming at going from
fragmentadas hacia
fragmented
estrategias
policy
integradas que
towards
sigan
more
donde la
integrated,
inclusión y la
holistic
protección social no solo
strategies where
contribuyan a
inclusion and
reducir la
social protection
pobreza,
not only will
sino que
reduce
también habiliten
poverty,
trayectorias
but also
productivas
will enable
sostenibles en los
productive
territorios rurales.
pathways which are
La siguiente
sustainable.
esfera programática
Next,
incorpora la dimensión de
we
crisis y
have
de
the
shocks
dimension of crisis and shocks,
materializados en emergencias agrícolas y
and
alimentarias,
such as
que son cada vez
food
más
and
determinantes en los
agricultural
contextos rurales.
emergencies, which are
En este
critical
ámbito, la
in
prioridad
rural
regional
context.
4
Priority
propone el
number
desarrollo de
four
sistemas
is
locales de ventana multiagencia, incluyendo
early
mecanismos
warning
locales y
systems,
comunitarios que
including
permitan
local and community
acciones
mechanisms
anticipatorias y
allowing
preventivas
for
y una mejor preparación
inclusive
a los
actions
riesgos,
and a better preparation to
así como
risks,
también el
as
fortalecimiento de
well
la
as the
resiliencia
strengthening of
de vida y la gestión de
resilience and
riesgos de desastres,
livelihood and
incluyendo también
managing
la restauración y recuperación
disaster
en los
risk,
territorios
as
rurales
well
de
as
sistemas
restoration and
agroalimentarios
recovery in
que se vean
agri-food
afectados por las crisis
systems that may
económicas
be
y los
affected by
conflictos.
economic crisis and
Este
conflicts.
enfoque permite proteger
This
la población
allows
de
for
la
the
reducción de
protection
la
of the
pobreza y
progress in
mitigar a la
reducing
vez los
poverty
impactos
and
de
to
las crisis
mitigate
recurrentes
impacts of
sobre las
reoccurring
poblaciones
crisis
rurales más
on
vulnerables.
most vulnerable rural
La siguiente diapositiva,
populations.
por favor. Gracias.
Next,
Nuestra cuarta esfera programática
our point number four,
profundizar la integración entre la
aiming at
resiliencia, la inclusión y la
resilient
sostenibilidad,
agri-food
buscando desarrollar
systems
sistemas
to
agroalimentarios
develop
resilientes. En ese
resilient
sentido, la propuesta se centra en
systems.
mejorar la
We need to
riesgos.
improve the risk
Tiene la
management
integración de enfoques de
through
protección social
integration of
e inclusión en
social
países
protection and
afectados por
inclusion in countries
trayectorias
affected
migratorias,
by
así como también
disasters
generar
and
datos
food
y
crisis,
análisis
as
para
well as the
informar
building
políticas
data
de
analysis
supervivencia
for
para el acción
anticipatory
participatoria,
action,
incluyendo análisis de retornos de la inversión.
including analysis of
Estas
ROI.
acciones buscan
These
asegurarse de
actions
decisiones
aim at
públicas más
moving towards
preventivas, más
more
eficientes y
preventive,
más
efficient,
costo-efectivas,
and
que
cost-effective
reduzcan los costos
decisions,
humanos y fiscales
reducing
de
human
respuestas
and
tardías.
fiscal
La esfera
costs.
programática número 5
Point number
Un
five
se
minuto,
enfoca,
María.
gracias, Duca, se enfoca en la iniciativa Mano de la Mano,
is hand-in-hand
que ha sido
initiative,
mencionada anteriormente.
which has been referred to before.
Esta iniciativa busca aportar
This
una dimensión
initiative
territorial
aims at
clave
providing
en la
a
prioridad
key
regional 4.
territorial
Y aquí
dimension that
trabajaron en
priority
fortalecer
number
las
4
capacidades
to
analíticas
strengthen
de los países miembros
analytical
para la toma de
capabilities for
decisiones de inversión
evidence-based
que se basen
investment
en
decision
evidencia
makings
y en el desarrollo
among member
territorial
countries, and
a
as
través
well as
de
the
esta iniciativa
territorial
Mano de la
development
Mano.
through
Esta
hand-in-hand
línea de
initiative.
trabajo
This
permite identificar los territorios
allows to
prioritarios y
identify the
alinearlos a objetivos de
priority
reducción de la
territories and to
pobreza y
align
resiliencia y
goals
productividad
of
en
resilience
estrategias
and
prioritarias de desarrollo
poverty
territorial.
reduction.
Y finalmente,
And
la
last but
esfera
not least,
programática número 6 se enfoca en
point
el
number
escalamiento
six
de las
is the
inversiones para
scaling up of
sostener
investment
estos
to
procesos en
support
el largo plazo.
these
En
processes
este
over
marco,
the
la
long
prioridad
term.
regional 4 apoyará el
Priority
diseño de
number 4
mecanismos
will
innovadores
support
para la
design
atracción de inversión
and
conectante,
innovative
tanto
mechanisms
pública
for
como
enabling
privada,
public and private investments for
en aras del desarrollo territorial
territorial
a través de
development through
posición de estructuras de riego,
projects on
transición
irrigation
energética,
infrastructure, energy
digitalización y una
transition,
mejora de la
digitization,
conectividad rural.
and improvement of rural
Estos mecanismos son
connectivity.
clave para escalar los
These
impactos y
are
asegurar la
key to scale up
sostenibilidad de las
impacts and
intervenciones en
secure
el tiempo.
sustainability of
Y
these
cerrando
interventions over time.
rápidamente,
And in closing,
solo para dar una versión más redondita, la prioridad regional 4 va
priority number
en el
4
fondo buscando abordar las causas
aims at
estructurales de la
addressing the
pobreza y la
structural
desigualdad
causes
regional,
of
al
poverty
tiempo que se
and
fortalece la
inequality by
resiliencia frente a
strengthening
crisis cada vez más
resilience
frecuentes,
to
esto
more and more
integrando
frequent
la igualdad de
crises by
género, la inclusión
integrating
productiva,
gender
gestión de riesgo y
equality,
desarrollo
productive
territorial con un
inclusion,
objetivo muy claro,
risk
que es
management with a
mejorar de
clear
manera
objective,
sostenida la vida
namely
de las
to
poblaciones
improve
rurales
the
y asegurar que el
livelihood of
reconocimiento
rural
de sistemas
populations and to
agroalimentarios
guarantee
sea
that the
verdaderamente
transformation of
inclusivo
agri-food
y
systems is
resiliente
really
y sin
inclusive and
dejar a nadie
resilient
atrás. Muchas
without leaving
gracias,
anyone
Duca y
behind.
María.
Thank you, Tuka.
Muchas gracias, María Ignacia, y a todos
Thank
los
you, Maria
colegas que han
Ignacia, and all the
presentado. Como ustedes
colleagues
han podido ver, es
present
una agenda
that presented.
muy
This is a
contundente, muy amplia para poder resumir
very
en tan poco
crowded
tiempo.
agenda. I mean,
Pero
very
por
difficult
eso
to
estamos
summarize in such a
ya en este
short
espacio de
time.
preguntas y
That's
respuestas
why we have
personalizadas.
a Q&A
Así que
now,
pueden
the
empezar a alzar
opportunity
las
for
manos
comments. So
y
raise your
preguntar si
hand,
hay alguna
ask your
pregunta de
question. There are
con
some
toda
questions in
confianza.
the chat pod.
Aquí estamos todos
Please
los
do not
colaboradores,
hesitate.
algunos
We have all the
a
technical
voces
teams, some
para
are
responder
taking notes,
directamente
others that will
a
be
sus intervenciones,
answering your
¿no?
questions
Hay
immediately.
colegas de la FAO, también de
There
las
are
oficinas nacionales que nos
FAO
acompañan,
colleagues
¿no?
from national
Y otros
offices in the
colegas
session
técnicos,
as well
tal
as
vez
other
hasta de la sede
technical
misma de la
colleagues,
FAO.
maybe
Pero
from
les pido,
headquarters.
por
But
favor, que los
please,
colegas de la FAO presentes
FAO
se
colleagues,
abstengan de pedir la palabra
please
para
do
que esta
not raise your hand so
sea
that's to offer
la
the
palabra
floor
prioritaria a
to
los asistentes del
the
sector privado. Y al final del
people from
periodo
the
de una
representatives
hora, que
from the
tenemos ahí
private
50
sector.
minutos, 55 minutos,
We have
ahí
55
podemos pasar la
minutes,
palabra
and then we will
nuevamente al
offer the floor
coordinador de cada
again
una
to the
de las prioridades
coordinators of each
regionales
one
para
of the
transmitir
regional
sus comentarios o
priorities for
respuestas.
the closing
Vi que tenemos
remarks.
preguntas aquí en el chat.
Okay, we have
Luego
questions
vamos a
here in the
rescatar las
chat
preguntas que
pod,
están
then we
en el
will collect the
canal de
questions
YouTube
in the
de la
YouTube
FAO.
channel.
Y ahora veo una
And
mano
now
alzada.
I see a
Cristian
hand,
Riofrío. Cristian, por
Christian
favor, si me puede preguntar
Riofrio.
de qué
Please introduce
institución o
yourself.
empresa representa,
What
¿no? Y
business or
también de
what
qué país
company do you
está
represent
hablando.
and
Adelante,
from
muchas
your
gracias
country?
por estar aquí con nosotros
Thank you. Thank you for joining
y te
today.
escuchamos.
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good
Buenos días
morning.
con todos.
Good morning,
Gracias por la
everyone.
invitación. No
Thank
sé
you
si me
for your
escuchan
kind
bien.
invitation.
Me
Can you
confirman, por
hear
favor.
me
Sí,
okay?
sí, se escucha bien.
Excelente.
Yes, loud and clear.
Bueno, mi nombre es Cristian Riofrío.
I'm Christian
Represento a la Asociación
Riofrio on
Ecuatoriana de la
behalf
Industria
of
Forestal y
the
de la Madera,
uh,
obviamente desde Ecuador.
AIMA
Y
from
una de las cosas
Ecuador,
que quería yo
Forestry and
mencionar,
Timber.
a
industry, despite the multiple presentations refer to the fact that the forestry, the importance of forestry, but I think we are missing something there. Probably in the documents it's there, but since this is a summary, and probably that's why you did not emphasize that. But in any event, this is the time to mention this. One of the things you discuss is sustainability for forestry, but it is important to make an emphasis on two elements. We need a balance between food security and the reduction of deforestation. And second, along the same lines, we need to strengthen forestry systems or and silvopastoral systems. I believe those are elements that contribute to this balance of zero deforestation and as well as food security. So from my point of view, and of course from the forestry sector in Ecuador, it's very important to make more emphasis on these two elements so that the policy resulting from such a summit meeting is more and more powerful towards these elements that from the sustainability of forestry industry are very important. Thank you. Thank you for your kind invitation, for considering the private sector, and for the possibility of using the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Christian. That's our role in this dialogue today, to strengthen some topics which are important to strengthen and to emphasize. Then some of the colleagues would like to react, some of our colleagues. I don't see hands. Okay, here we have one. Osman Kiro. Osman. Go ahead, please. Your microphone is off, Osman. Can you hear me okay now? Well, good morning, everyone. Let me read to the steering committee of FAO, the representatives from Latin America and the Caribbean in the session. I'm Osman Quiro. I'm chair the Confederation of Agricultural and Livestock Confederation of Venezuela. Our region is going through historical times where agriculture is not only an economic activity, but also the backbone of social stability and food security. Maybe we could, let me try to share with you a diagnosis of challenges we face as producers. Let's say that we have a perfect storm, particularly starting with the inputs costs. We know that the impact of global logistic volatility for access to fertilizers, the access to seeds, they're all linked to the political and regional situation we have in our country. Likewise, technology divide. There is a urgent need to optimize our results, yields, in order to these to be considered and addressed, especially because of the time frame it has taken for Venezuela to join this technology wave, which is moving very fast globally. And of course, climate change, which, as we all know, is a vulnerability affecting seeding plans. Well, it is important to say that in our region, it's critical for the funding offer is fast. That can be considered considering the time frames in the region, the timeline. And this is for extensive seeding in order to recover all the makeup for the time elapsed. And when that's why Venezuela has lost the ability to supply. Last year, we supplied corn, white corn, with a high social connotation because of a high consumption in our country. We only supply 42%, which means that right now we need over 400,000 tons of corn that we have to import from other countries so as to supply, to have enough supply until the next crop. The same is true for yellow corn, which is used for milk, for chicken, for eggs. Venezuela was managed to supply only 37% of our needs. Likewise, and this is a critical industry. Maybe we could elaborate on other industries, but the same is true with legal certainty, which in the case of Venezuela means guaranteeing the respect for property and investment. We, as a result of the local laws, land tenure in Venezuela, it has a lot of uncertainty, and that affects how we can address these type of problems. And of course, we need to improve logistics, infrastructure. Really, in the case of Venezuela, we may say that from FedeAgro, we ratify our commitment with the SDGs promoted through these type of organizations, and we'll continue to work so that food for Venezuelans is the result of our modern agricultural system. That's why from these organizations, from this platform, should receive truthful and timely information so as to provide proper reports showing what happens in every region. That's why we're really grateful for the invitation, and we hope this situation will be addressed in the coming years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Osman, for sharing your views as to one of the countries in our region. There are lots of differences among countries. Maybe one of the colleagues will react to your comments.
Paula Andrea Rueda Peña has asked for a question. And last week during the consultation with academia, some people were not able to raise your hand, but I would like to say that on the bottom part of the screen, you'll find an icon saying react. And there you can click on the raise hand icon. You can click there and that will raise your hand. Paula is there. Please go ahead, Paula. My name is Paula Rueda, and I form part of
Paula, no te escuchamos. Está como
Paula, we
apagada
can no longer hear you.
su audio.
We can no longer hear you, Paula.
A ver, esperemos un poquito más. A veces no tiene buena conexión.
Seems that she doesn't have a
Aló,
very
Paula.
good connection. Paula, can you hear
Tal vez ni
us?
nos escuche.
Maybe she can't even hear us.
Bueno. Paula.
Okay.
Bueno, Paula,
Okay, Paula.
si resuelve el tema de la señal,
If
nos
you're
deja
able to
escribir aquí en el
resolve
chat y se abre la
your
palabra.
connection issues, you can
Ok, en todo caso,
mention that in the chat and I can offer you the floor once again.
de esas estrategias, ¿cuál es la mejor vía
Let's see,
para
what
hacerlo?
is the best
¿Cuáles son las
way to
mejores
do this?
prácticas para
Which
poder
are the best
lograrlo
practices
debidamente?
to
Tal
achieve
vez esa
this
sea una buena pregunta y
adequately?
varios de los
I
participantes
think
tengan la
that's
misma inquietud.
a good
Así
question, and maybe
que no
other
veo más
participants have
manos
the
levantadas.
same concern.
No sé si algunos de los colegas ya quieren reaccionar a las preguntas y
Let's see,
comentarios.
do colleagues want to
Dejo
react
ahí la
to
palabra
some of these
abierta
comments and
para
questions? The floor is open in any case.
Ahí, antes de pasar entonces a FAO.
Let's see, before we
está
offer the floor to the
Aquí
FAO.
Hola, Juan. Bienvenido.
Oh, Juan is here.
Bienvenido al
Hello,
equipo
Juan.
técnico.
Welcome.
Adelante.
Sí, quería reaccionar a la
I
primera
just wanted to
intervención
react
del
to
tema del
the
sector
first
forestal.
intervention on
Decirle que sí,
the forestry
efectivamente,
sector
desde
and
FAO estamos
mention that
promoviendo
indeed,
un enfoque de
as from the
manejo de
FAO,
poblaciones
we're
con un manejo
promoting
integrado
an
del
approach
fuego
of
silvestre
landscape
de la
management and
naturaleza un poquito
an
después.
integrated
Básicamente,
management of
lo que nos analizamos
wildfires as
viendo
well.
es que
But
las
first of all,
actividades
what we're
productivas
viewing is
se
that productive
desarrollan en
activities
paisajes
are developed
muchas veces
in
forestales y
landscapes
que
that
muchas
are
veces dependen de
often
servicios
forest landscapes
ecosistémicos
and that
de esos
often
países
rely on
para
the
la producción.
ecosystemic
Entonces,
systems
nuestra
in those
mirada
countries
pasa
for
por
production. So
trabajar de
our
manera integral en esos
viewpoint
casos
involves
y
working
saber
comprehensively
dónde
with the
vamos a
landscape,
conservar o dónde
defining
vamos a
where we're
promover
going to
conservación y
promote
definitivamente en
conservation,
qué lugares
also defining which
son
places
ideales para la
are
producción. El
ideal
programa
for
1 de la mano
production. The
justamente
hand-in-hand
ese
program
tipo de análisis,
focuses on this
pero
type of
también
analysis,
viendo qué
but
áreas o
also
paisajes son necesarios
determining which
restaurar
areas of the
para
landscape
gran parte
need
de los
to
servicios
be
ambientales
restored in order to recover
posiblemente
the environmental
podamos hacer
services
eso
that
haciendo algún tipo de producción
uh,
tradicional y dentro de esos
where we conduct
áreas de
traditional
restauración es donde hay
production.
muchas
And in these
oportunidades
restoration
para el
areas,
sector
we find
forestal
many
y para el
opportunities
sector
for the
también de
forestry
producción
sector and
agroforestal
also
una
for the
producción
sector
menos invasiva pero que nos permite
for
recuperar
the
partes de los ecosistemas
forestry
ambientales.
production
Y como parte,
sector,
digamos,
which
de ese
enables
enfoque de
us to
paisaje,
recover
estamos
environmental services.
promoviendo
And as
lo que es el
part of this
manejo integral
viewpoint, we're
del
promoting the
fuego como un
comprehensive
concepto en el que nosotros
management of
entendemos
fire,
el
which is a
fuego como
concept
parte
where we understand that
un
fire
medio infinito
forms
de
part
calidad
of
que
what one
muchas
uses
veces
in
en
the
actividades
landscape,
productivas y que terminan
often in
generando
terms of productive
degradación
activities, and that
por,
leads
por
to
accidentes.
degradation as a
Y
result of
tratar de
accidents,
integrarlo de
and
una manera
trying to integrate
técnica,
that in
profesional,
a technical and
digamos,
professional
forma
manner
de
so that it
todo
can
el manejo de
form part
paisajes
of
sin
this
desperdicio,
landscape
¿no? Entonces,
management
seguir
without
trabajando en eso. Y parte
destruction. And so we're
de ese
working on that.
trabajo en el área de
And
producción
part of this work
pasa por
in the production
intensificar la
area
producción en
involves
aquellas
intensifying
áreas que
production
son
in those
aptas
areas
desde el punto de
that
vista
are
ambiental
suitable
para
from the
la
environmental viewpoint in order to
Muchas
produce.
gracias, Juan.
Thank
Veo
you,
manos
Juan.
alzadas de mis colegas.
I see that my
Pasar
colleagues have raised their
directamente
hands, but I
a
will offer the
el
floor directly
secretariado. Veo
to
aquí
the
Edilberto
representatives from the private
Osinaga
sector,
Rosado.
Edilberto Osinaga
Adelante, si nos puede
Rosaldo.
presentar, por favor, el
Please,
país de donde se
can
encuentra.
you introduce yourself, your country, and the
Muchas
institution you
gracias.
represent? Thank you very much.
Soy secretario ejecutivo
I
de la Confederación
am Executive
Agropecuaria de
Secretary of
Bolivia.
the
Es una institución que
Agricultural and
agrupa a
Livestock
cámaras
Association of Bolivia, which
agropecuarias
brings
de
together
los departamentos
agricultural and
y
livestock
también
chambers
asociaciones
in
de
each
productores
department, and
de todo el
also
país.
producer associations from
Es
our
muy
whole
interesante escuchar las
country.
distintas
Now, it's been
situaciones
very interesting
de
to
los
listen to the
países
different
y sus propuestas,
to the
y
different
cada uno
situations of
tenemos cosas
countries and your
particulares.
proposals, and we
Por
will have
ejemplo, nosotros tenemos una
specificities, of course.
productividad muy
For
baja.
example, we have a very low
Nosotros tenemos un país
productivity. We have a country. For those of you that don't have information about this, we have a country where we have tropical areas, we have valleys, we have Chaco areas, but with very high vegetation. We have very rich valleys. We have highland areas, and our highland areas also have productive capabilities for quinoa production. We also have the production of natural products such as honey, Amazon fruits, acai, cashew nuts, and so on. But our production, but basically our productivity is very low. And I would like to very quickly mention an example. Corn for animal consumption. If you look at FAO information, and our yield is less than 3 tons per hectare. When Paraguay achieves more than 5, or more than 5, and if you compare Paraguayan land, most of that is very similar to our Chaco area. We have areas that are far better than that. In terms of rice, we obtain around 3 tons, so when the average of our neighbors is more than 5 tons. In terms of wheat, we don't even reach a level of 1.5 tons, and Argentina, which is close to us and our natural supplier, obtains a yield of close to 3 tons. And if we deal with potato, our average is below 7 tons per hectare. And the countries that supply us whenever we are missing potatoes is Peru and Argentina. Peru has a yield of 16 tons on average per hectare, and Argentina more than 32 tons. And the last reference, in terms of quinoa in our highland area, our yield is no greater than 600 kilograms per hectare, and our reference or our comparative point is Peru, which is always between 1.3 and 1.5 tons. Now, we have climate, we have land, fertile land, strong land. And so why don't we achieve similar yield compared to our neighboring countries? Well, this refers to access to technology, and that is the main limitation. We're talking primarily of small producers with some restrictions in terms of access to credit, and also some limitations in terms of market access. Let us remember that our population is not greater than 12 million. The agriculture and livestock sector in highland, tropical areas and in valley areas has a potential of increasing production 2 or 3-fold, simply dealing with the issue of productivity. So in concrete terms, one of the key aspects that we would like to bet on, or that we need, is to strengthen productivity. We can expand our borders in the eastern part, but before that, we have a tremendous potential in terms of increasing productivity. Again, I say that our land is strong and fertile, and before we can increase our areas in terms of area, if we can gain access to more technology, to some irrigation projects, to dual purpose projects to generate both energy and provide irrigation, we will be able to increase our production very significantly. That is what I wanted to mention. The other aspect that I wanted to refer to is that we do have limitations in terms of access to food. We have a low income population, and Paraguay, our neighbor, their GDP per capita is $6,000 or slightly more than that, and yet we have a per capita income of $4,000, and therefore it's very difficult for us to import food. Whenever Argentina was suffering from an accelerated devaluation and inflation, we were receiving illegal imports, and despite the fact and our products are cheaper, have cheaper prices than our neighbors, and therefore they are illegally exported to our neighboring countries. But basically, that is what I wanted to share you, and I would like to thank you for enabling this participation. Thank you very much for your words and for sharing the situation, for sharing with us the situation in Bolivia. Now I'd like to offer the floor to Paula. I don't know if she is back. Yes, I'm sorry, but my um, equipment crashed. My name is Paula Ander Rueda. I am form part of OFI, which is a multinational, a multinational company that exports coffee, cocoa, dairies, spices, and nuts to over 65 countries. In Latin America, we are working in 8 countries: Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil in coffee and cocoa. And we work with these chains. Well, the core business of our core business is sustainability. Choices for Change is the name of our strategy, and it is a public strategy, and you can study that if you want. And I mention that because linked to these supply chains, we have more than 100,000 households of rural producers, where close to 70 or 80% are small rural producers. Our business is to develop those sustainable chains. And if we analyze sectors in Latin America, well, we face different challenges. But if we focus on Central America, for example, the challenges of migration, of the overburden of work, or the redistribution of those tasks, not only productive and reproductive in nature, that fall upon the shoulders of women, the challenge of generational complementarity, the interest of young people of maintaining the interest of young people and so on. This also has a tremendous impact upon the has a long-term impact on supply chains. And if we consider that 70 or 80% are small producers, there are also major gaps in terms of access to nutrition, health, food security, access to financing, and to education. That are aspects that form part of the vision that we have in terms of the comprehensive development of supply chains that we cannot always deal with, and also the suppliers that we supply food to. We need to focus on productive aspects and sometimes on environmental aspects, and also some social and community aspects in the development of these chains. And we also have an area to develop strategic partnerships with Latin America, and that is our main interest. And that is why I was asking those 2 questions in the chat in terms of the scaling up of interventions, in terms of the FAO approach, and good practices in terms of coordination with the private sector, and what has been most successful in that articulation with the private sector that has a network of producers widely distributed, but also widely characterized in terms of their needs that goes beyond the main crop that links them to these chains. And so we find legal challenges in terms of compliance with regulatory aspects. That always definitely exerts pressure on chains, but also in terms of social and community aspects that we don't necessarily deal with. There we find needs and opportunities to coordinate the institutional offer, and also in terms of what the private sector can do in order to bridge these gaps in these communities. That is what I wanted to mention on top of the questions that I had posted in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. We have multiple initiatives with the private sector. Here in the chat, we will be posting a link you can access to. There are some other publications, including that, but we will elaborate on that later on. Thank you. Santiago. Santiago
Hola,
Lopez.
si se puede presentar.
Please
Nos
introduce
fueron
yourself.
uno de los
Santiago
voceros de la
is
conferencia
one of the
anterior,
spokesperson from the
¿cierto?
previous conference. Am I right?
No te escuchamos.
Your microphone, Santiago.
No sé.
¿Escuchan?
Ahora
Can
sí.
you hear me now?
Sí.
Muchísimas gracias, Dulca.
Thank you,
Efectivamente fue en la de
Dulca.
Ecuador desde
Yes,
hace 4
in
años.
Ecuador, 4 years ago.
Bueno, muy buenos días para todos.
Well,
Para
good
mí es un
morning,
gusto ver
everyone. It's
nuevamente a tantas caras conocidas,
pleasure to see so many
conocedores
familiar
tanto del sector
faces,
privado de nuestra
home
región
from
como desde la
the
FAO.
private
Hemos
sector and
trabajado en la
FAO.
transformación de los sistemas
We worked in
agroalimentarios desde los ámbitos de nuestra región.
transformation of the
Al
agri-food
primer
systems.
mensaje que desde la industria de bebidas y su
This
cadena
is
queremos
for
transmitir
the
es un mensaje de agradecimiento.
drinks
Agradecimiento por esta
industry. We
invitación
would
al
like
sector privado
to thank
para
FAO
participar, para sumar, para
for the
ser parte de la
invitation
solución
to be
y
part of
participar
this
en positivo
solution
en los 4
and
objetivos
to
estratégicos de la FAO, que son 4
try to
imperativos que
contribute to these
básicamente
four
podemos aplicar en
betters,
cada uno de nuestros
which may
sectores,
be
los
applied
4
in each one
mejores
of our
o los
sectors, the
4 verdes,
four
como lo tienen
betters.
en inglés. Ok, colegas, al revisar el orden del día
In
de la conferencia
reviewing
regional en Brasilia, llama la
the
atención que
conference in
el
Brasilia,
primer ítem
the
anotado
first
es el
item
tema referente a la inflación.
is
Hacer frente a la
inflation,
inflación de los precios de los
facing
alimentos
a
y
food
señala
price
que para
inflation.
hacerlo en aras de
Claim
seguridad
is
alimentaria y
that for
nutrición.
food security and
Como segundo,
nutrition.
está establecido proteger
And
la salud de
then
América Latina y
One
producción
Health
de manera
for Latin
de animales,
America,
plantas y seres
for
humanos.
food,
Y tercero,
animals,
la
and
gestión
humans,
sostenible del
and the
agua y la
sustainable
salud.
management
Y
of
acá,
water.
como actores del sistema agroalimentario, lo primero que
As an
queremos decir
act,
es que
as a
todos nosotros
stakeholders,
podemos
we could
aportar
say that
de
all of
manera
us
muchas
we can
áreas y es
contribute,
importante
and
ratificar
it's
esto.
important
Es
to
el sentido
ratify
de mi
that.
intervención.
I mean,
Ratificar
that's my
que
point, to
nosotros como sector
ratify
privado
that as a
podemos y
private
queremos
sector,
hacer
we
parte
want and we
de
can
de las
be
acciones
part
frente a
of
estos
this, of
cuatro
actions
mejores imperativos.
to address
De cara
these
a la
four
conferencia,
betters.
como sector privado,
Now,
nosotros
as
podemos
private
implementar,
sector,
sumado a lo que ya han dicho los colegas,
plus
la
what
armonización de
has been
normas
already said,
bajos
we can
de codex
standardize
para ayudar a eliminar barreras para las empresas
standards.
necesarias.
We can
Y esto pues
standardize our rules and
evidentemente la
regulations, which
eficiencia
will have
regulatoria
an
que queremos
impact
hacer
on
para combatir
the
la inflación de alimentos. Yo
regulatory
finalizo
efficiency to
simplemente
fight
agradeciendo y
food
ratificando
price
que tenemos mucho trabajo por
inflation.
delante y que
Again,
pueden contar con
we have
nosotros
lots to do,
para
and you
ese
can
trabajo.
always count on us on this
Gracias,
journey.
Santiago.
Thank you,
Ya tiene mucho trabajando con nosotros en
Santiago.
varias agendas.
He has been working with us in
Entonces,
several agendas, so
ya no tenemos manos alzadas.
no
Tenemos
more
algunas preguntas de la
hands.
página
We
web
have
y
a
también
couple of questions from
de
the
YouTube.
chat
Así
and
que
from YouTube.
mientras no aparezca nadie
So
del privado que quiera
while we
hablar,
see
paso la
another
palabra entonces
hand,
a mis colegas
let's
para que
offer the
hagan
floor to
ahí
my colleagues
unas reacciones a
to
lo que ustedes han
react
comentado.
to some of your comments.
Marinacia tenía antes
Maria Ignacia, I believe.
levantado la mano, ¿verdad? Ahí adelante. Después,
ya he levantado la mano.
Go ahead.
Ahí.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Bueno, agradecer primero que todo
First of all, let
a
me
ustedes por
thank
sus comentarios
everyone
y
for your
contribuciones.
comments and
Súper
contributions.
interesante para nosotros poder obtener
It's
esa
really important for
perspectiva
us
y ir
to
construyendo en el fondo como una visión
hear from
común
you so as
respecto
to
a estos
build a
problemas
common view of
que
these
enfrentamos como región y de las
problems we face as a
mejores maneras
region
para
and the
enfrentar
best
estos desafíos.
ways to address these
Em,
challenges.
Hablando sobre las preguntas
Speaking
relacionadas
of
con las inversiones, desde
investment,
nuestra experiencia, la articulación con el sector privado
articulation with the
es
private sector
fundamental
in
para
our
poder
experience is
lograr
critical
estas estrategias.
to scale
Justamente
these
por eso también estamos
strategies. And
teniendo
that's why
esta sesión
we
de consulta,
have these consultation.
entendiendo que
We
el sector
understand
privado
that the
aporta no
private
solamente
sector
con el capital, ¿cierto?,
contributes
sino
not
también
only
con
the
capacidades de
capital,
gestión,
but
con
also
innovación, con
management
conocimiento del
capabilities,
mercado
innovation, knowledge of
y con la
markets,
posibilidad
and the
de llegar a mayores
possibility
escalas de manera más rápida y más
to
eficiente muchas veces.
grow more
Una manera
efficiently and
efectiva de poder
faster.
avanzar en
An
este
effective way to
sentido
move
es
forward
trabajar en alianzas
is
de
working
largo
in
plazo,
alliances, long-term
más,
alliances,
más que intervenciones puntuales
rather
donde
than
podamos
pointed
generar
inventions,
una clara alineación
where we
entre
can
los objetivos de
create
política pública
alignment
y los
between the public
intereses
policy
del sector
goals
privado.
and the interests
Esto
of the
implica
private sector, which means
mejorar de cierta manera el marco, la institucionalidad donde
improving
se
the
desarrollan estas
legal
alianzas,
framework, the
contando con
institutionality,
reglas del juego más claras, marcos
better
regulatorios
ground
previsibles
rules,
y también una
predictable
adecuada distribución de los
regulatory
recursos
frameworks,
económicos
and allocation of
en el sector
risks.
agroalimentario y
The
sobre todo cuando
agri-food
hablamos
system,
muchas veces de pequeños
especially
agricultores,
small
el
farmers,
riesgo, ¿cierto?,
the risk for private investment may grow. So we need to manage this properly. Some innovative mechanisms, such as combined funding or blended finance, is an alternative, an interesting alternative for better guarantees, improve the mitigation mechanisms, and structure the projects. This has proven very key, good tools to unlock investment. Initiatives such as Hand in Hand contribute to this process, acting as an enabler, as a facilitator between the private sector and the public sector, the territories, to better quantify investment opportunities, contributing to territories with a high social vulnerability, but also with a high productive potential. With a strong focus on evidence analysis, so as to do some sort of a matchmaking to close the gap between the incentives of private investment and local requirements. This has proven very successful. Let me also say that among best practices, we have the joint work with the private sector to add their views and constraints in the building of projects, which have to be very well structured and to be bankable to attract private investment and to supplement investment with technical assistance and the strengthening of capabilities in order to reduce operational risks, in order to improve sustainability and the impact of investments, especially when working with the more vulnerable territories and populations. Building this trust, building the transparency, this shared view for economic and social value, using hand in hand, for instance, helps connecting stakeholders, territories of funding, and the articulation with the private sector becomes then into a decisive element to scale solutions and to speed up transformation of agri-food systems in a sustainable and inclusive way. Thank you. Thank you, Maria Ignacia. If you could share a link to Hand in Hand, especially focused on the region, so that they can learn more. Leopoldo. Leopoldo. Thank you, Duca. I do thank the comments from our the people in the session. Let me address a couple of points. The importance of consolidating this narrow link between scientific evidence that required for the progress in the formulation of specific programs and policies that can have an impact on agri-food systems, and hence the importance of the private sector in contributing with such evidence. That's an important source of data, relevant evidence on productive systems throughout the food chain as a food industry, and will supplement that information which could be provided by the academia as well as the government authorities. For better nutrition, the evidence is important because, as we said, Latin America has a move forward in reducing hunger and food security, but we need additional evidence to move in a coordinated manner with the private sector and to focus on those rural communities which are most vulnerable, small farmers with certain constraints, health difficulties, and little access to production processes and systems. reference was made to the importance of having public policies which are adapted to territories to characterize rationality and this local socio-economic context of the intervention areas so as to consider those inequalities so that the results are more relevant and effective. As to the most holistic policies, something was said that when we address public policies in food security and nutrition and access to healthy diet with the public health approach, with as agricultural production, also requires environment. A healthy diet acknowledges the interaction between production of food, consumption, environment, and there, of course, forestry production is relevant for food security and nutrition. And it's part then of this approach of policies which are integrated and multifactorial in addressing these challenging multidimensional problems. And last but not least, the Codex Alimentarius. This is critical for agri-food trade. Food safety, it's a cornerstone, and therefore the importance for countries to have an active participation in the formulation of codex regulations, providing evidences, characterization of risks, and the situation of countries in the preparation of the rules and regulations, and the importance of these international reference rules can update legislation on food safety to harmonize regulation and the food trade. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you, Dulca, and thank you for elaborating on the information. Now, we will have Danilo Salerno. He's from the cooperatives. Last year, there was an International Year of Cooperatives for the United Nations, and we have worked on a very important agenda together, right, Danilo? So, Danilo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Duca. I'd like to greet all colleagues present and greet the FAO, Pablo Maya, and all those from the regional FAO office. 2025 has been a very active year. As a member of the steering committee, I would like to congratulate the initiative and the whole series of consultations with the private sector and with a whole range of stakeholders and FAO allies. In a wider ranging fashion, as a result of all the alliances that we have entered into, especially today when the links with multilateralism and with dialogues in order to build concrete ideas and policies to strengthen the governance not only of food systems, but also as a contribution to the regional and wider-ranging SDG agenda is very important. We have the strategic plan for cooperation in the Americas that has brought together many of the issues of the regional agenda, and also making a contribution to the regional SDG agenda. I would like to highlight some of the results of this alliance. and also establish continuity via the UN International Year of Women Farmers, and that the FAO has prepared and is close to executing, implementing these initiatives in the region. We understand that the UN has other approaches as well that may be explored for rural areas. But in general terms, I would like to highlight what Leopoldo just mentioned, the importance of the legal and regulatory frameworks, so that all of us may contribute with our initiatives and escalate that so that interventions may become much more effective. What has been mentioned by colleagues with regards economies of scale at a productive level, but also in terms of the capability of better environments and better lives is very interesting, where producers can gain access to markets, and cooperatives are indeed an example of that. And we have put forward some initiatives that we can leverage together with the FAO and with other stakeholders. The conference to be held in Brasilia will be important in order to strengthen some of these dynamics, in order to strengthen dialogue, and also to establish ways to measure and bring to the fore everyone's contribution. And with an interesting approach, which has been highlighted not only in terms of agri-food systems, but I believe that someone has already mentioned the issue of care, which is a newer dimension, in inverted commas, in the regional agenda of sustainable agri-food systems, and is an agenda that has already been launched and confirmed by several agencies and UN agencies in the region. But that is what I wanted to say so far. Representatives of cooperatives, agencies and cooperatives from other countries that will probably also make a contribution, but I greet you all. Thank you, Danilo. Now, let's see, we have 10 minutes before we end this morning's session. We have little time. Catalina Moyano has asked to speak, to react to a specific point. Very quickly, Catalina. Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the contributions and comments to the issues that have been presented. My colleague Fernando has already answered and reinforced some of these comments, contributions and comments that invite us to analyze these challenges, not only as from the urgency of climate change, but also in terms of the concrete opportunities that emerge when we align efforts and priorities at a regional level. It is clear that actions must take into consideration stakeholders that are political, cultural, economic, social, productive, and environmental stakeholders that enable us to restore productive ecosystems. And that is why our work focuses on strengthening those technical and institutional capabilities that countries have, facilitating access to climatic financing and promoting inclusive policies that increase resilience in territories. These actions respond to shared regional and supplementary regional priorities, where the generation of knowledge, innovation, and alliances enable us to make coherent and efficient progress. As from our role as regional priority number 3, we will continue to create enabling conditions, promoting alliances, and providing solutions that are scalable, that reflect the complementary nature of these, and that result in very concrete results. Thank you, Duca. Yes, thank you very much. And in order to close, and to have a break because we resume at 2:30 Chilean time. We'll offer the floor to Maya so that she can make a close of this session. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. And to all collaborators that accompany us. It's very adequate for us to listen to all your viewpoints and all sectors from the viewpoint of producers, from the viewpoint of producer associations, from the viewpoint of value chains, and even from chambers of commerce, because you are the ones that are in this day-to-day work, and we are collaborators of those that conduct this work. And I would like to reinforce the commitment of the FAO in terms of continuing to reinforce consultations, our listening, our coming close to the needs and these daily challenges. We have presented part of this, but it's very good for us to determine whether we still need, to determine what we still need and where to focus. We need to consider two things. This is a meeting point for countries where countries will discuss common issues and also needs for cooperation. And this is a very important part of the conference. Each country has its own specificities, but the idea is to determine what what we face in common as a region, what unifies us as a region, and in which direction we want to head. And now, despite the fact that we face an increasingly challenging reality in this sense, we believe that when we speak about agri-food systems, we are able to reach consensus. And listening to the productive sectors is one of those visions in common that we have in order to tackle the challenges. The second point is that despite the fact that we have presented for regional priorities, the idea is for them all to come together. The idea is not to implement them all in each one in an isolated fashion, and this is a concern that we have as a FAO and also as a region and as a technical team. And many presentations showed how we can work jointly, and agroforestry, for example, deals with production and with protection. We also work with food security, animal and vegetable security, and we will face sustainability challenges. And this is what we call the programmatic approach, which we try to promote. And looking at food systems with an approach that is efficient, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. This narrative enables us to conduct this integrated sectorial work. And this is the narrative that enables us to make an impact upon public policies and upon investments. And investments are not sectorial. The investments that we want to promote have to impact agri-food systems, and also seeking evidence so we can show results in the generation of employment, in the generation of income, in the reduction of inequalities. If we're able to show that, it becomes easier to explain that investment. And our idea is to reinforce this comprehensive approach, working with the different stakeholders. Duca has already mentioned examples that we have in our portal in terms of good practices, in terms of working with the private sector. We have examples of this in the document of results, some even associated to the promotion of private funds in order to support value chains or improve, for example, the production of milk to cater for the requirements of industry. And this is very positive both for the producer and for the chain that will have better products for processing. Cocoa and coffee chains, these are all areas where the alliance with the private sector is fundamental in order to meet the quality requirements that are needed for producers to expand. And I'm sorry, but the quality of the audio is very, very poor. These are all actions that are fundamental for producers that produce cocoa, milk, and many other products. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much. And congratulations for your work. And we'll keep in contact. Thank you.
Gracias, Maya.
Okay, we're thus close this morning's event. We have been accompanied by 120 persons, both via Zoom and via YouTube. And now I would like to mention that now we'll have a break. We will resume at 2:30. The people that are in YouTube today must register again for this afternoon session because there will be that will not be streamed. It will be a closed session with representatives of the private sector in the region. And for those that accompany us in the Zoom, we will be using the same link that you have used this morning. And in this second session, we will have a wider participation of the steering committee. And we will raise the main issues of concern or of suggestions to be taken to the regional conference. We will produce the declaration of the private sector and also choose the 5 spokespersons of the private sector that will be representing the whole private sector in the region within the regional conference of the FAO in the first week of March in Brasilia. We thank all colleagues from FAO, especially IT communications, the interpreters. So after lunch, then we will resume at 2:30 Chilean time to hold the exclusive meeting with the private sector. Greetings to everyone. And
Latin America and the Caribbean recorded progress. Hunger and food insecurity are declining from 33.7% in 2020 to 25.2% in 2024, according to the latest report on food security and nutrition in the world. This is one of the largest reductions worldwide, but challenges remain. Today, 34 million people still suffer from hunger, and healthy diets persist unaffordable for 182 million people. The causes are complex and interconnected. Extreme climate events, economic constraints, global disruptions like the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and rising food prices. The most vulnerable are hit hardest, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals is at risk. That is why we must accelerate action. In March 2026, leaders will gather in Brasilia, Brazil, at the 39th FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Heads of state, ministers, parliamentarians, civil society, academia, and the private sector, all united from 33 countries, will address regional priorities and strengthen joint action towards transforming agri-food systems. We need to identify solutions together. FAO stands as a trusted and an impartial partner and continues supporting countries to transform agri-food systems, making them efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. For a world free of hunger, this is the path forward. A better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. Latin America and the Caribbean can lead by example, transforming agri-food systems through integrative, innovative, and science-driven responses, and build a region free of poverty, hunger, and inequality. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act.